Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So it was a big day yesterday at the Supreme Court where we heard various states, Idaho and West Virginia, put forward their arguments to the Supreme Court justices. And what stood out to me was the language they were using in court, the justices themselves, referring to these male athletes with she, her pronouns, referring to them as trans girls, which, tugs at the heartstrings for a lot of people, refusing to call them boys. So we can be clear on what we're dealing with. We had arguments saying that, if a young male athlete, this child, he is as he would have been if he was born female. That was the argument of the ACLU lawyer. No scientific basis for that whatsoever. Complete fantasy. Because this person is not female. If this person was born female, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be having this conversation. West Virginia would be allowed to get on with doing what they were doing. So that was ridiculous. Hearing the term cisgender in a Supreme Court was just so bizarre, so unbelievably infuriating. Hearing a Supreme Court Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson, for example, using the terminology cisgender, a made-up term. At least they could have just said females. Something like that. Like, why are you using that terminology? It's ridiculous. And then I think the line of the hearing was, of course, from Ketanji Brown Jackson. So if you were following me on X, I was just commenting here and there when something stood out to me. I'm not an expert in all these things, American constitutional law and all of this. But I was just like, I can't believe what I'm hearing. So we had Ketanji Brown make this very profound statement. I can't even get that out. Cisgender women can compete according to their gender identity. Transgender women cannot. As if being a woman is a gender identity. We are talking about biology. We are talking about males, male athletes, boys, men who want to compete against women. And to hear a Supreme Court justice use this sort of language and to speak that way is just ridiculous. But as she said, she's not a biologist. Let's hope for a good result today. I'm hoping it's going to be today. I've been checking and they're hearing some other cases today. The case about the tariffs and all of that. So we shall see. But I guess they're deliberating at the moment as we speak. And then Ketanji Brown Jackson, I'm not picking on her, seriously. But she said that, what's wrong with just allowing this athlete to compete? His circumstances are different. He was on puberty blockers and all of that. Or the athlete in Idaho, I believe, is much older. What's wrong with allowing these athletes to compete? But the thing is, they love to use this argument. Before they wanted everything. Now they're trying to act like they're reasonable and they just want a little leeway. No, it's not a little leeway. So if we let this athlete compete, on what basis? A case-by-case basis is completely irrelevant to this situation because there's no case where a man can be a woman. There's no case where a boy can be a girl. Oh yeah, you can be a girl, so you can compete. Oh yeah, you're a girl. He's not though. That doesn't exist. These athletes are male, and there's no case-by-case basis upon which a man can be a woman. That's it. No matter what medications he's taken, there's no case-by-case basis when it comes to this situation. We either allow boys to compete in girls' sports, or we say no. And of course, they have to say no. They have to protect the female category, a category that was introduced for the inclusion of women. Because before, when competitive sports took off, whenever that was, at least the Olympics, there were only men competing, only able-bodied men. Categories were created for the inclusion of women for anybody who isn't an able-bodied man. So to allow men to trample all over women's sports in the name of inclusion is just absolute insanity. It's the duty of the Supreme Court to protect the female category in sports so that women are able to compete and participate in sports. Serena Williams, the best of the best female athletes, will not get anywhere if they have to compete against men. That is a fact. So it's not about, how good of an athlete you are. And of course, they can be as mediocre as they want to be and still get to go to the highest levels within the female category. That's called cheating. Let's have a look at this tweet. This is by the ACLU. I guess they believe this is going to help sway the Supreme Court justices.
When you're young, you believe that you can do anything.
And then the world tries to set limits for you.
Tell you what's allowed,
What's normal?
who you're supposed to be.
But on the field, the track, the court,
Here, you get to be exactly who you are.
Because at our core, we're still the kids who just want to play.
The go big game changers.
The living, breathing fabric of this country.
Supporting trans youth isn't just about sports.
It's about freedom.
On and off the field. It's more than a game.
So we had people who can't accept themselves for who they are. They're born female and they claim to be men. The other way around. You have parents telling their kids they're born in the wrong body. Kids who identify as transgender and the parents encourage it. That's this lineup right here. We have female athletes who have never competed against males before, advocating for men to compete in women's soccer. Absolutely disgusting and incredibly out of touch. I don't think this is going to sway the justices. But you know what does limit us? Biology. A woman can't turn into a man. She wants to present herself that way. That's one thing, but she's always going to be a woman. And the sooner we can accept that, the better. The sooner a man accepts that he cannot be a woman, the better for everybody. So let's take a look at this interesting segment, or I'm told it's interesting.
I'm joined now by former Idaho State cross-country runner Madison Kenyon and the president and CEO of Alliance Defending Freedom, Kristen Wagner. Thank you so much to both of you for joining me. I know you've been in court today listening to and watching these arguments. Madison, first off to you, tell us why this is so important to you.
Oh man, well, I went to Idaho State University on a track and cross country scholarship where I raced a male athlete in the women's division many times, and I lost every time along with hundreds of other women. I saw a teammate pushed off a podium, and I know that that roster spot didn't go to a woman. And after seeing that and knowing that this is not fair, I stood up to protect these sports that gave me so much, gave me my education. And it's not fair for women to compete against men. It ruins the integrity of women's sports.
Absolutely. It ruins the integrity of women's sports. She will never get that time back. She should have cross-country champion to her name, whatever the terminology is. First place, state champion. She should have all of those titles to her name. Or whoever was the fastest female at the time. Records. We're going to look back and see male athletes' names there. How can we claim that that's upholding the integrity of women's sports? It is not. It's doing these younger women a disservice, and it's an absolute travesty. Like I said, she will never get that time back. So she's putting her energy into making sure it doesn't happen to other young girls. But she shouldn't have to do that. So let's see what this woman has to say, because I don't see how there's a justification for that.
What were the conversations like with athletes when you were competing against a trans athlete? Were there various perspectives that you were getting?
It was pretty consistent across the line that it's unfair for a woman to step on the line against a male. It's like you haven't started the race, but the result has already been decided. And running's a mental sport. If you think that, then that's what happens. And we're collegiate athletes. We're not participating for a participation trophy. We're sacrificing every single day to go out and race and to beat the odds.
And Madison, is there room to stand behind your concerns about fairness, which, like I said, when you look at polling, there are a lot of Americans who share your concerns, and the majority of them do when it comes to sports. Is there room, though, to stand behind those concerns and still empathize with trans students who want to have school experiences that can be so character and community building? And how do you approach that?
They're asking the wrong question. I'm sorry. They need to be asking why people think it's okay to not be compassionate towards the women, towards the girls. What happened to compassion towards the female athletes who are just doing what they're supposed to be doing? Working hard, training and competing in their sports. It's the males who came over and infringed upon the category that belongs to female athletes that belong to women. They weren't the ones infringing upon anything, these women, these girls. It was the male athletes. And the politicians, the lawmakers allowed it, as well as allowing these male athletes to come in and out of the women's locker room, taking away these girls' privacy, their dignity, their consent. It's absolutely disgusting.
I think it's really important to understand that when women compete against women, it is fair. When you put a man in women's athletics, it's not fair. And women have nowhere else to go. If you take away the fairness in our sports, we literally have nowhere else to go. But when men compete against men, it is fair. And when women compete against women, it is fair. And so in order to protect the opportunities that I had in college to get a scholarship, to get an education, for all of the future generations of women, it is so important that we can recognize that women should only compete against women.
No, and understanding that that is your position and that people share that with you, how do you see the issue of including trans people in school activities, in the community, in a way that makes them feel included?
I'm so sick of them conflating protecting the female category with saying that trans youth cannot compete in sports. She said it very eloquently there. They have options. They can compete on the boys' team. I'm not apologizing for saying that because that's fact. They can compete on the boys' team. They can compete in co-ed sports if they really don't want to do that. But to force the women to compete against boys makes no sense whatsoever.
Because I will say, looking at this, you'll hear, and we had someone on the other side of this issue on the program last hour. There's certainly a feeling of being excluded. So I just wonder, from sort of your point of view, how just on a very human level you see that.
I think it's important to see that anyone should participate in sports, but sports is based on biology, and that's why it's important that women only compete against women. So anyone can play sports, but where is it most fair? And for women, that's only against women.
And can I just add, I mean, this idea of kindness and compassion, we should be extending that to all people, no matter how they identify. And we shouldn't be making differences on the basis of how someone identifies if that's not relevant to the particular inquiry. I think the other big piece to put there is, you said, how do they feel? Well, I want to focus on the harm to the girls, because even in the case before the Supreme Court, over 420 girls have been displaced 1,100 times and lost 57 medals to the boy at the heart of the case. So let's talk about how those 400 girls are feeling in this moment.
Yeah, and certainly there are a lot of people who have a lot of feelings in this issue, and we understand that.
Yeah, there are a lot of This isn't just about feelings. This is about biology, biological facts. The boy's feelings cannot give him a gateway into women's sports. I'm sorry. That's not how it works. It's about time that we start acknowledging reality. 400 girls displaced. Oh, there's your 1%. Oh, it's less than 1% of the population. Like, they love to pull that one. They pulled that at the Supreme Court as well. Such a small percentage. Never looking into the number of girls who have been affected, who have been displaced, who are sat at home on the couch when they should be competing because a spot was taken by a male athlete who shouldn't be in that category. She had nothing to say to that. This is a woman questioning a young woman about why she doesn't want to compete against boys. What are you trying to get this woman to agree to? That in order to be compassionate, she has to accept boys taking opportunities away from girls in her own sports? No. And like this wonderful woman said at the end there, I'm more interested in how the 400 girls feel about this, how it has affected them. It's about time these politicians, these judges start asking the girls how it makes them feel, starts talking to the girls and getting a real sense of reality about what they have allowed to happen for years, taking away time that these girls can never get back. They want to compete in sports as well without infringements. These girls have a right to compete in sports and to not be excluded by male athletes who have no business competing in their category. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video.